Musicals, operas, barbershop quartets, church choirs, lovesick young men serenading their sweethearts under the balcony. Songs and the people who sing them have been a part of all cultures everywhere throughout history. My earliest moments in the vocal spotlight included trying to hit the high notes of If I Were a Rich Man Without My Voice Cracking in the Southwoods Middle School production of Fiddler on the Roof, and sharing the stage with Idina Menzel in the Syosset School District Summerstock production of Bye Bye Birdie. Idina went on to win the Tony for Best Actress in Wicked, and I went on to... Which brings us to today's interview with a friend and vocal teacher who offered to help me reboot my Broadway career and send me singing all the way to the Big Apple. Or maybe just finally help me hit the right notes for once. I'm Brian Johnson, and this is Nobody You Know. Hello and welcome to Nobody You Know, and today I am sitting next to someone I actually know pretty well, but you don't, so she qualifies to be on the show. This is an old friend of mine, Connie Norman. Although the longer we know each other, the more the term old is applicable in many, many ways. For both of us.
Be real
for both,
careful.
Yeah, I know.
If
you're watching this, I made it out of this interview alive. You know, the world is so full of singers that in itself is not unusual. That's not something that says... make a program out of it. But I just wanted to talk to you because I'm not a great singer. In fact, I have a little bit of envy for people who can just belt out beautiful notes, or in your case, join in with 4-part harmony. So let's start with I don't know, how did you get into singing at all?
Well, first of all, I've always sung. My mother used to call me her little singing bird because I'd be singing around the house. You know, it didn't matter what else was going on. I'm singing. Of course,
I have one of those.
Yeah. Okay, this is a good thing. Yes. Well, you know, back when I was growing up, there wasn't things like television. We did have radio and whatnot, but the house was generally kind of quiet. Mm-hmm. And I'd spend a lot of time just singing. So God did give me that gift. He gave me the gift of music and the ability to sing. That is a double-edged sword. Because when you have been given a talent that you haven't really had to work for or work at perfecting or protecting, it's real easy to start abusing that at some point. And the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, you're singing away, but then I got involved in your Broadway plays and all that stuff too, was in all of that in high school and, you know, throughout my life, community theater, et cetera, et cetera. And you've heard the Broadway belt.
If I've heard it, I don't know it by that name. Can you describe what you're talking about?
Yeah, that is where you are. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. You know, in other words, again, back in the day.
How's the microphone? Is this?
Sorry about that. You know,
I asked for it.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But what happens? First of all, the reason for the Broadway belt was, again, back in the day, they didn't have microphones. Mm-hmm. And they needed to be heard all the way at the back of the theater. So they would, you know, just really belt it. And again, those that had the natural talent didn't realize what they might be doing to that voice, you know. And that, in essence, happened to me. I mean, this girl, the old gray mare, ain't what she used to be anymore, you know. Because I
didn't bring it up a second time.
No, you
didn't. That was you, okay.
It was me, yeah. Again, not having had necessarily the instructions on how to protect your voice and be a good singer. You know, I think that initially, way back when, and like when I went down to... I spent some time in Las Vegas, got involved in some theater there and they were kind of pushing me to sing in ways that I really shouldn't be singing. And so, because I'm a kind of an overachiever, I'm doing that, you know, and I felt what it was doing to my voice. Thank God gave me my voice back because it was gone for a little while. When I moved up here, you know, I actually prayed that, please give me my voice back. I want to sing, you know. Well, I had been a part of Sweet Adelines ever since 1971, was when I got involved in. Then that's a kind of a whole other story. Is how I found
We'll get
them.
to that. Yeah.
Okay, but that's where I really learned about how to sing and what's right to do with your voice, what's wrong to do with your voice. That through that organization with a cappella music, and that's my favorite because I do love the voice. I love the pure voice. You know, you can't hide behind other instruments.
Right.
You know, if you're singing in a band or singing with piano or whatnot, you know, you can hide, and people aren't necessarily going to see some of the fragile moments you might be having while you're singing, you know. But when you are doing a cappella music, it has to be pure, it has to blend, it has to be strong, you can't be wimpy, but it has to be properly supported and all that. And when you are just given the talent, you know, you don't really think about stuff like that, especially when you're young. You know, you're just singing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I came to realize is that it's very important to teach people how to sing, how to protect their voice, because we're only given one voice box. That's not something that can be replaced like a heart or a liver or whatever. You know, we're only given one voice.
What exactly is a cappella music, and how did you get sucked in?
That is a wonderful way to phrase that, sucked in, because with a cappella music, oftentimes it either grabs you or it doesn't. I was home from work one day. I was sick, laying on the couch, watching TV, and it was a local program. And in the studio, the guy that was much like what we're doing right now, he had these folks invited him in, or he invited these ladies into his studio, and they were all in these kind of ginghamy type dresses. This was back in 1971. I was just
I'm not asking.
Tiny, you know. I must have been homesick from school, I think. Anyway, when they started singing, I went, oh my goodness, I have to participate in that. How do I find out about this? What is this? You know, because it definitely got me. It touched me at that point. And I had been married to, I'm going to say this, because I don't even think he's alive now, but I'd been married to, none of my exes are living. I've outlived them all.
Okay.
But this one had said to me right after we got married, now you know you're not going to do any of your music and your theater stuff. Oh, yeah.
Wait, you say just after you got married?
Yes.
So once it was too late.
Exactly.
Ouch. Men do not do that.
Do not do that.
Do
and
not.
Women don't put up with it. You know, find out about these things before you get married. Yeah. Because that had been my passion. Theater and music and dance and all of that. I loved all that. And, you know, after the marriage date, and he said, you know, by the way, you know, I'm going, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You know. So that was like 4 years later when I had cut off all, you know, I wasn't doing anything in music, theater, whatever, you know. I was homesick one day, and that's when I discovered the Sweet Adelines. And I found out where they were rehearsing. I did not tell my husband that I was going to go to a rehearsal.
You rebel.
I know. But I went to that rehearsal and I was hooked thereafter. I mean, it was like almost instantly I wound up in a quartet. I wound up doing choreography for the group. We would call it choreography because you're not actually out dancing, but you do moves on the risers.
A little bit of swaying.
Yeah, well, that's more than swaying nowadays. Oh my goodness, it's a grand production that you see some of the big choruses do. It's fascinating. But that's where it all began.
Well, going back to the first part of my question, which you eloquently skipped right over, what is a cappella music?
Right. Okay. A cappella music is where you are singing with the pure voice. You don't have an instrument backing you up. You're just singing.
Who and what exactly are the Sweet Adelines?
Okay, that's all about 4-part harmony. In the Sweet Adeline world, it's barbershop is what, you know, it started with way back in the day. It was about 76 years ago when Sweet Adelines became an organization. Tenor part, there's a lead part, there's a what's called a baritone part, and then the bass part.
Yeah.
And the lead part is sung in the middle of all
Okay.
of that. So the harmony, the tenor part is the harmony part sung above that melody, and then the two other parts are usually below it, although the baritone and the lead oftentimes are interchanging where the harmonies are, because the melody goes, all over the place. I mean, the melody will go where it's going to go,
Yeah.
and the harmony has to fit in around it.
But, for example, the Barbershop Quartet in The Music Man has the one guy with the really high voice.
Right,
He's
that's-
not the melody.
Right.
I tend to think, and I think most people do, you think of the melody as the line that's up above all the harmony and the loudest.
That's regular choral music.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be regular choral music, sopranos, and that's why they get the rap of being the divas, because they always have the melody, Yeah.
All right, so Barbershop, four-part harmony,
Four-part harmony, yeah.
will actually blend it somewhere in the middle range. Does that... I'm trying to think back to the times that I've heard your group, the group you belong to, singing. Does that require some extra effort on the quartet's part to make sure that the singer with the melody line is louder when they have it? Or do you work on just blending it all together so it's one big sound?
The melody always must be heard.
Okay.
Must be heard. However, if everybody is singing correctly and they're melding those voices together, the natural harmony of the arrangement usually will allow that melody to be heard without that melody singer having to portray extra strength, so to speak.
Okay. Now, the Sweet Adelines is one kind of umbrella organization, but you headed up, what are they called, a chapter or a... Okay, I hit the right word. Okay. How does that work, I guess, is the question. I was trying to think of something eloquent, but how does that work?
Well, we'll just talk about the last chorus that I was directing.
Okay.
I actually created that particular chorus. I birthed it here in Bend, where I thought
Yeah, we're in Bend.
Where am
yeah.
I? Oh, yeah. So back in, what was it? I can never remember. I think it was 10 years ago, 2010 or 2011. There were some gals that wanted to create a new chorus. There had been one in the area for a long time, but we weren't all like-minded. So these gals wanted me to create a new one and be their director. So we did that, and it was very exciting. It's like birthing a baby and then helping that baby to grow.
Is it as painful?
And learn. It has its moments.
A 1 and a 2 and a 3.
Stepping out with my baby.
Let's do that again and it'll be a little cleaner with it. And a 1 and a 2 and a 3.
Stepping out with my baby. Dancing tonight.
As the highlight, or maybe the grand finale of today's episode, I did talk to Connie about getting my first ever voice lesson. I've been in church choirs. I've been in 3, maybe 4 musicals in my life. I was Snoopy in college in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
I won't say that, Fitz.
It's supper time, yes. But I've never had someone crack the whip and say, this is how you sing, nope, do that, nope, change that, and let's improve that, and all of that. And so, just for fun, we're going to find out what goes into it.
We'll start here. You can hit that.
Do you want literal? I mean, do you want me
And we're going to go down, okay? So I wanted you to take away, you're not a piano anymore, because there's a definite difference.
Yes.
So I want you to
Want me to just slide?
well, not really slide, but just have an energy that connects you to the next note. Yes, didn't that feel better?
I don't know about better, but I mean, it's different.
Okay. Well, it sounded better.
Okay. That's like a doctor going,
Open up. Right now, it's written in this key, so it'll be or.
That's love.
So love is a many splendored thing.
Love is a many splendored thing. It's the April rose that only grows in the early spring. Woo!
There we go. Let's do that. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it gets any higher than that all the way through. I think that's as high as it is. Okay.
Love is a many splendored thing. It's the April rose that only grows in the early spring.
Early spring.
Did I just shatter glass on computer screens all across America?
Well, I want you to think about your wife.
Okay.
And like you're singing this to her.
Love is a many splendored thing. It's the April rose that only grows in the early spring.
Yeah. I could feel your heart in that.
It's the April rose that only grows in the early spring. I'm getting a nod.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was better. That was
Okay,
better.
I went in the
better,
right
better.
direction at least. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So what did you do differently? What did you feel like you did differently? Although you added a little bit in the middle of Splendor, you added a little bit of what you were trying to do with Spring.
Which I think I heard is I think halfway through that I went, she's going to peg me on the middle of that phrase.
Yeah. By the way, I am getting some nice feelings
Okay.
in it. I can tell that's.
Well,
coming
I'm
more
looking
from
at
the
your
heart.
thermostat and I'm just kind of romancing it. So
Where's my?
that's,
my
it's right
thermostat.
there in my highlight as I looked up. There was my line of sight. Okay, there it is. There we go. It's the April rose that only grows in the early spring.
Yeah.
I think part of it was I prepared to keep going, as opposed to that's the end of what we're doing.
Love is nature's way of giving.
A reason to be living, a golden crown that makes a man a king. Love's on a high.
There you go. Now you got it. You're doing my Broadway bell.
There you
and
go.
It's okay.
That wraps up my interview and my first vocal lesson with Connie Norman. How did I do? Did I at least pass?
You passed, and
Okay.
I would love to see you again for another lesson
Okay,
because
yes.
I think we have some real possibilities here. I think he could be our next great singer, don't you?
Well, okay, the butter's a little thick there, but that's okay. I hope you enjoyed the subject. I hope you enjoyed the video. I am told by some of my friends who are more into social media than I am that at this point you are supposed to, no, I'm supposed to tell you to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the little bell that gives you notifications every time I put up a new episode. And that helps me get more subscribers for the channel and makes this thing go worldwide, because it is my philosophy that it's the ordinary people out there who are far more fascinating than any celebrity you'll see on The Tonight Show or anything like that. I want to feature those people. It's the tagline of this show that you don't have to be famous to be fascinating. I'm Brian Johnson. Thanks for watching Nobody You Know, only now you do.